Good afternoon, residents of Cedarfield, family members, team members, and Pinnacle Advantage members, either listening here live and or taking in this information this evening, which is September 15th, which also happens to be the commencement of Yom Kippur tonight at sunrise or sunset, as our Jewish friends, our residents throughout Cedarfield gather for this very sacred holiday. The executive team and I wanted to extend our wishes for an easy fast to all those who are observing Yom Kippur. For those of you that don't know, this Day of Atonement is a day for reflection and humility, repentance, and a true chance in the Jewish faith to be honest with yourself and one another about our shortcomings. But it's also a high holiday for hope. We can certainly build better bridges with one another, and the Jewish faith helps us with those ideals and those values that they share. On this very special holiday within the Jewish faith, it is my hope that the common humanity and humility that unites all of us may also be our common uniting faith in a better future to inspire us of a lot of the healing around the world. And so I'm going to make this ask. This is the first time I've ever done this in my life. I'm going to ask everybody at Cedarfield to join me and to join the Jewish residents, which there are 20 of them at Cedarfield, in considering the following, if it is safe for you to do so. On this holiday, it marks a fasting day for folks within the Jewish faith. And to have a better, more understanding of this holiday, I think it's important that I've done a lot of research here over the last 6 months and sitting with folks and understanding about this holiday to really consider fasting for a full day, if it's safe to do so, to really understand the roots of this particular holiday. It's a very solemn day, and it lets fasting is an important component to Yom Kippur in a very personal way. If you've not fasted in your entire life, it's a day of intense self-searching and earnest communication with yourself. This search really requires an internal calm that can only come with fasting, which derives from really slowing down our biological rhythm and our daily rhythm. And fasting is one of the keys to really helping with that inner awakening. And so if it's safe to do so, I would encourage you, for anyone that's listening, the fast really should have started last night at sundown all the way through today at sunset. But in the next 24 hours, if you're able to do so, that would be great, just to get you a little closer to the importance of this self-searching holiday that our Jewish friends go through. It's the most solemn day of all of the holidays within the Jewish faith, and it really reminds us of not only ourselves, but the enormous challenges that lie ahead in our world, and how we can maybe make this a better place to live, crossing the religious boundaries. So I will be doing that in the next 24 hours, starting at sunset today. Second announcement has to do with our 25th anniversary. Next week is an enormous celebration. We are so grateful for the group of residents and team members that have been planning next week. They've been doing this planning for the better part, really, of 12 months. And we've been celebrating different events monthly since this time last year. And this next week's event is really just the capstone to this 25th anniversary celebration. We are just very grateful to a lot of vendors. There are 17 vendors, contractors that we have courted over the last several months to help us celebrate next week's 25th anniversary celebration. And those donors, those contractors, those vendors have donated over $35,000 to next week's events. And so with the sponsorships come a variety of ways to highlight these contractors and vendors and or strategic partners. So you're going to see lots of literature and signage of the different things that the vendors and the contractors donated, whether it was goods or services or different parts of next Thursday and Friday. And so as we publicize the vendors, the contractors, the strategic partners, and the ways that they have donated money towards this milestone event, we're going to list out the names of the corporations and contact members of those companies, and if you ever happen to see them over the next couple of months, whether it's the service person that comes to the community or people at the corporate offices, just encouraging everyone to thank them for being a partner in this event. The main reason we've asked vendors to be a part of this event, because it's really a three-part equation in our opinion that really operates a community. First and foremost, you have to have residents live here. Secondly, you have to have team members that work here. And then thirdly, you have to have contractors to help kind of fit the void of all the services that we need that don't fit quite into an operation of team members. And so we'll make that list available so that everybody can see who they are and you can thank them along the way the next several months. Dining has a very special dinner planned for residents across all levels of care, so we're pretty excited about that. In independent living, there's a dinner, very special dinner for the 23rd and the 24th. Reservations, you need to make reservations if you haven't done so, if you're living in independent living. For the other dining, for the other levels of care, there'll be a special meal in memory support, assisted living, and health services served on the 24th, which is next, or 2 Fridays from now. So the whole event really is surrounded by a music festival starting early afternoon on the 24th. There'll be a variety of musical acts throughout the day, throughout the community. We plan very shortly, probably in the next day or so, to publish the list of musicians and the stages that they'll be on and the times with a map that will be placed in every resident's cubby box or mailbox here in the next 24 hours. So look forward to that so you can chart out your day on the 24th of which musicians you want to see. The day ends, the capstone event ends with Doctors of Jazz opening up for the headlining event, the Kings of Swing. So all that takes place around 4:45 on Friday. We intend to have seating available in the courtyard, on the patios around the courtyard, and certainly here in Fellowship Hall. If you haven't heard of this headliner, the Kings of Swing, it's a Richmond favorite, and we're blessed that they actually are coming to our event. Residents should really have a good time next Friday night. And so if you haven't done so, please make your reservations and please be available here on Friday. It should be really a great event to celebrate our 25th anniversary. I'm going to shift gears a little bit and go into the COVID world here, our preparedness plans. Right now, our dashboard is green at Cedarfield. We don't have any residents and or team members with any cases. We have one resident or one team member who's still at home, but she has cycled off the CDC's guidance, the guidelines. And so the campus is green right now, which is great news. Can I get an amen? Amen. Regionally, the dashboard, if you haven't watched some of the local news, the state positivity rate, the 7-day positivity rate within the state rose a little bit in this past week from 10% even last week to 10.8 today. Henrico County went down a little bit from last week. Last week we were sitting at about 9.3%, and Henrico today is 8.8%. The city of Richmond increased a little bit from 13% to 13.5 last week. A couple other counties that I haven't been highlighting over the past several weeks, but folks have asked if I mention it. Chesterfield sits at 10.5, Hanover sits at 10.5, and Goochland sits at 5.4%. So those are some statistics regionally. We have not changed our Cedarfield Forward plan in the last week. That we have a COVID-19 team, an action team that meets every Monday, and that team met this past Monday and decided to not change anything because we're waiting on the next evolution of our Cedarfield Forward plan will probably involve a lot of the news that comes out from the FDA and the CDC the latter part of this week or even the beginning of next week, which talks about the booster shot. And so we're waiting for information from those authorities so that we can update our Cedarfield Forward plan accordingly. So look forward to that next week, and whether or not there is if there's no new news that comes out of those agencies, we're probably just going to publish again the Cedarfield Forward plan so everybody can see it, for those of you that haven't read it the last time. Some good news with COVID-19. So Cedarfield and Pinnacle Living, we mandated the vaccine as a condition of not only employment, but a condition of providing services as a contractor at Cedarfield within Pinnacle Living. That deadline was this past Monday. A few weeks ago, when we first published the letter stating that we were heading in this direction, above the curve of everybody else, many other organizations, I just might add, we were reporting that we had 61 team members that were unvaccinated, and probably half of those would not even entertain receiving the vaccine. Good news, as of Monday, of those 61 team members, only 11 decided not to get the vaccine, who have since left our organization, effective this past Monday. And so that is just an enormous feat when you think about the level of communication, the level of trust building and education that goes along with helping 50 team members cross the finish line to get the vaccine. Hats off to Connie McGowan, our infection control nurse, Ann Hopper, and the wellness clinic, our physicians, Dr. Vranian, Dr. Shear, Dr. Cook, people of authority that can really speak to the clinical side to this vaccine, who have been at the helm of answering questions and taking that checkered flag with those team members across the finish line to get that vaccine. So as we sit today, 11 people out of a workforce of 290 is a really good percentage. I think we all should be proud of that percentage. In terms of this other pandemic that maybe nobody wants to realize or believe that we're in, there's some that really, quite frankly, don't even care that we're in this other pandemic called a workforce pandemic. It's the one thing that keeps me up at night, many nights. We do have 33 FTEs that we're searching for across many different departments or neighborhoods. And it's a very difficult labor market, and will continue to be a very difficult labor market until January of next year, particularly because we're in an election year. Quite honestly, whether you're a Republican, Democrat, or undecided, it really doesn't matter. We're in an election year, and so movement into changing unemployment benefits and or weekly fees, subsidies that people are receiving because they're unemployed, that will not change until after the governor's election. And so, in my humble opinion, that is the main reason why our workforce pandemic issues will remain until the January. So I just really ask patience. I can tell you, I and our entire executive team have never worked harder in our entire careers to search for qualified people who fit our culture, because we're not just going to settle for any hire. We're going to continue to be diligent with our hiring to make sure we're finding the right people. But that pool of people is very small right now. And will continue to be through January, December. So I just ask your patience. I know some of you will probably say, that's not my problem, that's your problem, Michael. And anybody that says that is absolutely right, it is my problem. But we have as many resources as we possibly can pointing at that strategic initiative to find 33 FTEs meaning full-time equivalent team members that we need to balance out our operation. So if anybody has any questions about that, feel free to come down to the administration suite, or you can feel free to talk to any one of the directors of the departments, and we will answer any and all of your questions just as soon as we can. I don't see Ann Hopper and Dr. Scheer aren't here.
Not here today.
They're not here today. Okay, so we're going to skip the Ann Hopper, Dr. Scheer segment. We do have Jack here. Jack's going to come up in a couple of minutes. Before Jack comes up, just want to let you all know about a couple of health services items. Right now, Matt Dameron and the entire nursing team are in the middle of what we call a mock survey. We have the pleasure of partnering with Mary Childs. Mary Childs has been in the Commonwealth of Virginia, helping nursing homes and assisted living communities across the Commonwealth with regulatory compliance for many decades. She is really, truly a gift and in the right vocation as a consultant helping providers like Cedarfield across the state. And so she's with us today. She was with us yesterday and today, getting through this mock survey in assisted living to prepare us for our actual survey with the regulators later this year. And then she'll come back in a couple of months and help us with our Medicare certification, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, and help us with some mock surveying to get us ready for a federal survey, different than what we've done in the last 24 years, which is a state survey with the Virginia Department of Health. Speaking of that, a couple of questions have come in over the last several weeks of, Michael, you're talking about the master plan expansion, and we're renovating all these spaces now on the west side of the property, what is known as the regulated side, health services, and we're talking about Medicare certification, that we're certifying a 20 apartment area for Medicare. And a couple of questions have come in over the last couple of days. If we could highlight this as one of a frequently asked question. And one of the questions are, why are we doing it now? And why do it at all? Why is it necessary to involve Medicare now in this particular area? What does it mean for us? And so, from my perspective, I've never operated a retirement community without a Medicare certification. So it was kind of unique to me coming to Cedar Field without it. The history behind that is that we, when we built Cedar Field in 1996, decided that we didn't need those folks in charge at that point decided they didn't either need or want Medicare Part A in Cedar Field. And so long-term care at Cedar Field has always been known for a convalescent stay connected to a life care contract where people just needed to stay there in that level of care, and or if people needed a short-term stay but needed therapy kind of to complement that stay, we tapped into, once upon a time we had Genesis here, rehab. Now we have Health Pro Heritage. And they have a license with Medicare Part B to provide therapeutic services. So we used the Part B services up on the 4th floor in healthcare to complement a long-term care stay. Part A and Part B services in Medicare are very different. That's why Medicare has that set up that way. Part A, inpatient therapeutic stay, is much more intensive. The reimbursement is significantly different, and the ratio and the number of minutes that a resident could receive therapeutically under a Medicare Part A stay is very different than a Part B stay. And so I think as we move forward, the board of directors of Pinnacle Living, the Pinnacle Living office, and myself believe that as we move forward and we really want a true continuum of care that has as many components as we can possibly put in that continuum of care to provide services so residents can age successfully, we really believe we need a Medicare neighborhood. And so that's part of this renovation plan. In the next 11 months, we will have a Medicare Part A neighborhood. It's a 20 apartment neighborhood, and that skilled setting, otherwise known as skilled nursing, Medicare Part A, therapeutic neighborhood, the staff, the therapists and the nursing team are there to treat, to manage, to observe, and to evaluate care under federal guidelines of a Medicare Part A stay. So it's different than a Part B stay, and not that we're going to excuse Part B services. If residents need Part B, they can come down to the 3rd floor and receive Part B services right there in the gym. And so I really believe that this is a necessary renovation that we should go through on behalf of the residents that we currently serve and will serve over, years to come, so that residents have a full continuum of care to tap into. So if anybody has any questions, anybody have any questions here about that, feel free to ask them now or in future town hall meetings, and or stop down to administration, or certainly feel free to contact Matt Dameron and or Tamika Ross, our DON, just came from a skilled setting over on Parham Road. So we're blessed that Tamika operated a skilled nursing home for the last 6 years of her life as a director of nursing there. So she's very aware of how to operate a nursing home from a federal regulatory standpoint. So between Matt Dameron and Tamika Ross and Mary Childs, the three of those folks are going to help us gear up a project plan to get ready for Medicare certification in the early part of summer for next year. So, okay, I'm going to call up Jack Johnson, who's got some news about plumbing and an assortment of other things to talk about. And then I'll be back to round out this live chat.
Hello, everybody. Just have a couple of updates for maintenance and engineering. Due to some logistics and staffing needs, we've had to reschedule the plumbing repairs on the second floor of the independent living side of the building. Some of the necessary supplies are on back order. They're saying it's going to take 2 weeks to possibly get everything in hand. So it's important that we are sure we have anything brought along, a little piece of the pipe, so you can get an idea how big this supply line is that we're going to be working on. We want to make sure we have everything we need when we shut the water off and drain it all down. It's going to take some time to do that, so we want to be prepared, have enough people on hand, and can do it all in one night, so that we don't have to get into 2 nights of this. So the parts should be here at the end of the month, and once we are sure that we have all the parts, we will be scheduling. So more to come on that scheduling. Also, it's time for the annual fire sprinkler inspections this month. So we've scheduled that for September 30th and 31st. So you'll see people coming around to inspect the little sprinklers in the hallways, in the common areas, and in the main building apartments and rooms. Should go pretty smoothly, but we'll be sure and put out some reminders and information to let everybody know that we're coming. So as soon as I have more information, or if anybody's curious to see, what the copper pipe and everything looks like, I have this in my office if anybody would like to see or talk about it. So thank you very much, and more information to come soon.
It's a big pipe.
Yeah, 5-inch copper.
Thank you, Jack. A couple other updates for me before I call up Annie for our spiritual well-being, and we'll go over some question and answer period. It's Housekeeping Week, National Housekeeping Week. If you see a housekeeper or a houseman or Sharon Brown, please thank them for all they do. Sharon Brown has really put together a nice complimentary items and events for the team to show them how much we all care about them. But happy Housekeeping Week to all our housekeepers that are listening here live or tonight. We couldn't do it without you. It takes an entire village to operate a community, and housekeeping has done an unbelievable job over these last 18 months as we've gone through this pandemic to keep Cedar Field sanitized with the right equipment in the right areas. And so thank you, Sharon, for leading us, and thank you to all the housekeepers and housemen for what you do day in and day out. We truly appreciate you. Dining services. Hopefully you all heard the great news last night. Nobody heard in here in the fellowship hall. There's about 20 people. The Atrium Cafe opened up last night at 3:30. We're gonna have a staggered start to opening the Atrium Cafe because we are in this workforce pandemic. Not that I'm making that up again. That's not Michael. That's just reality. And so from 3:30 to 7, the Atrium Cafe will be open. We have 2 people. Really, it takes 5 to 6 people to operate that space 7 days a week. So right now we've hired 2 people. We've hired the Atrium Cafe supervisor, Tanika. And if you haven't been down there yet, I would encourage you to come down there. They just have lots of enthusiasm for what they're doing. The 2 of them down there, great customer service, and you get a nutritious meal while you're down there. And so visit the cafe Monday through Friday, 3:30 to 7 at this point. What time is it, 3:30? In terms of I've been talking over the last 6 weeks about navigation and the aging in place, the continuum of care, all the services, and I keep referencing this document that I know everybody has on their coffee table, reading it from time to time because there's such great information in this document that 17 people helped prepare. Today I just wanted to highlight one of the items on this navigation pamphlet, which starts on page 2, which talks about physician services. At the bottom of page 2, it talks about under strategic partners, physician services. Most retirement communities in the country contract out with a doctor or 2 to provide physician services at a community. There's very few retirement communities that have the bandwidth to be able to support a physician's salary and have gone through strategic planning to get a clinic credentialed through the Department of Health and credentialed with all the managed care products that you'd have to bill for. So the easier one of the 2 is to contract with a physician, and then the physicians do their own billing. And so I really mean what I'm about to say. I've been in this business for 24 years, and I have never had a complementary of physicians at the helm that we do have here in my entire career. We have Dr. Varanian, Dr. Shear, and Dr. Cook. We've always had a great complementary of physician services at Cedar Field, but today, as we stand here on this live chat, these 3 physicians and the work that they do at Cedar Field is really unparalleled. It is unbelievable. Dr. Varanian, for those of you that don't know, has been here since the inception, going back to 1996. He's a graduate of the Medical College of Virginia, board certified as an internist. He retired from the Virginia Physicians Group, and he is a co-medical director at this point. He has been a medical director for a long time, and then about a year and a half ago, when Dr. Amy Shear was guided to us, we started talking about how maybe Dr. Shear and Dr. Varanian can take the helm of medical directorship and split the responsibilities. And so Dr. Varanian was the medical director for a long time, still is. He's now co-medical director with Dr. Shear. Dr. Varanian is responsible for medical directorship and primary care, primarily on the independent living side of our community. And Dr. Shear is the co-medical director for the licensed side of our community. For those of you that haven't met Dr. Shear yet, she's originally from Fort Worth, Texas, where she developed and grew a physician care services practice in that area. which had a heavy concentration on memory care residents in retirement communities or standalone communities, assisted living and or healthcare communities, along with what I just referenced here in the beginning of skilled Medicare communities. She is a graduate of Des Moines College, and she is currently board certified in internal medicine. Her and her husband moved to Richmond in 2014. Her husband owns a bicycle shop down in Chesterfield. For those of you that are cyclists or enthusiasts about biking, you need to visit that site. It's one of a kind. They have a brewery within that establishment. But Dr. Scheer came to Virginia and started a company called AD, Accessible and Dependable. So if you know Dr. Scheer, there's no wonder why she chose those two adjectives as part of her physician practice group here in Richmond. She's wonderful to work with, great clinician, and we're honored to have her as a co-medical director on the license side. And so she really helps Matt Dameron, our associate executive director, and Tamika Ross, our DON, with process improvement. We call it, the acronym is QAPI, Quality Assurance and Process Improvement, and making sure our clinicals are sound over on the license side. And then, of course, we have Dr. Cook, new to the team here in the last year, graduate of University of Mississippi, and Allison's waving her hand back there, the Medical School of Medicine, and he's also a board certified internist. And so and Dr. Cook has about 30 to 40 residents, 35 residents right now here at Cedarfield. They all come at various points of the week. All three of them are here every week. And so if you, my words of encouragement, we're talking about navigation, we're talking about healthcare delivery system, we're talking about having a very personal relationship with your physician, and we're talking about a network, a safety net for residents. So I would encourage residents that are listening here today, since we're talking about navigation, if you still have a physician that you're kind of on the fence with, that you may have had all your life, of a physician that's on maybe the downturn of their career out beyond the gates of Cedarfield, and or you're just not happy with your physician, or maybe you really don't even have a physician, I would encourage you to seek out maybe a little interview with Dr. Scheer or Dr. Cook, to get to know them and see if you might want them to be your primary care physician of choice. They're exceptional, and I promise you that you won't walk away from that conversation without a better appreciation for what they do and why they've centered their career around people 65 years of age and better. So that is my session for navigation. This pamphlet can go back on your coffee table, and you can refer to it when you're sipping on your tea tonight and looking for more information about one of the strengths of our community. Gossip squashing. I have one gossip squashing moment. I have yet to uncover. This came to me 3 times over this last week. We had a resident injured because there was a robbery that took place at Cedarfield. Apparently that was posted in the Richmond Times-Dispatch, and Jack Johnson, myself, security, we have no unearthly idea where that incident is coming from. We've talked with our overnight nurses that respond to incidences. We've talked with our security department, who lets in the police as the gatekeeper of the community. We've gone through tapes over the last couple of weeks to see if we see sirens on the campus, and quite honestly, I am unaware of a robbery at Cedar Field, let alone a robbery that took place and injured a resident. So for now, we're going to continue to investigate that. I'm squashing that rumor because we've done some extensive research around it. And if it pops back up, I will come on a live chat and we will amend what I am saying right now. A couple other things for me, administrative updates. We are still, I'm talking about the master plan renovation project. We are still on target to move a third of our fourth floor healthcare area, which is right now known as Lavender Lane. Those 20 residents that reside from where the Cedar Grill rests all the way through that nursing station in the middle of in the hallway, those residents will move to the fifth floor household on November 8th. We pushed back that timeline about 3 weeks from October to November. So that's planning, that is in the planning stages. And we are still on target as of right now to relocate the memory support residents who live on the fourth floor household building, otherwise known as Morning Glory Avenue, back to the second floor renovated space come the end of January, beginning of February. And then we have formally started the application process with Medicare. Mary Childs is helping us with that. Today really marks the beginning of that with the mock surveys in assisted living, but she's helping us uncover the project plan to provide the process and the education with the staff getting ready for Medicare certification. So that is all starting to unfold and very exciting for me, leading the community and getting another level of care here. So a couple other follow-up items for me. Cellular phone. We have and are working with 2 providers right now to see if a quote about antennas onto this roof of this building will help us serve with cellular phone coverage on the first and second floor. So as soon as I hear word about that analysis, we'll let you know. But let you know we're not sitting on that. We are not relying on a 10-year-old analysis. We're going to get current information. Secondly, the flu vaccine. Our provider downstairs, which is Remedy Pharmacy, based out of Ashland. We did put a order in with them back in February. They are honoring that order. They're still awaiting the flu vaccine to come into their organization. I hope to get word of when that shipment will come in later this week. For those of you that are watching Touchdown Slides, you may start to, and the Informer, you may start to see advertisements about the flu clinic coming up in October. So we have some dates that are earmarked for that flu vaccine. We're just waiting for confirmation from Remedy that we're actually going to receive that vaccine in time to hold those clinics. Voting precinct. Yes, we are intending to honor our commitment with the county of being a voting precinct here at Cedar Field. Florence Brooks is working with the Board of Elections to understand what their protocols are to keep everybody safe, and/or how we, Cedar Field, might be able to add on to potentially that protocol without interfering or making it look like we have an influence on one side or the other, to make sure that it's a safe environment for everybody. So as of this very second, we still do intend to be a voting site for the general public, and we are going to make it a safe voting experience for everybody. The Alzheimer's Walk is on November 6th. There's a committee meeting, there's a group of people meeting, I believe, tomorrow or the next day to talk through the details. So next week on Wednesday, we'll have lots of information to share about the walk and the details and how we as a community intend to support that cause. For those of you living in D-Wing, don't forget, Friday, 1 o'clock, we have a little mini town hall meeting. That's on Jack That's on Jack's calendar and my calendar. A couple other potpourri type of items. Signage, a lot of questions about signage. We do have a contract with a company called SMI, based out of Maryland. They have just completed the family of signs for the internal main building here. They just forwarded that family of signs to us yesterday. We need to schedule a date with them to review that signage package. Just as a reminder, there are residents that are already on this committee with management, so we have a nice complement of folks that are going to be looking at what SMI is proposing as the family of signs internally here, and opining on their recommendation. So the next phase of that is they need to come and present to us. I know signage is it's really bad at Cedarfield, and so we really want to take down all of these signs and give signage a new facelift here at Cedarfield. The other next phase is to look at all the external signs that they're currently looking at. They've been on the property and done their audit, and their design team is working up a family of signs for us to consider. So that is all moving, I believe, in the right direction. A couple of questions came in about the timing of the town center, the chapel, the library. When is all that getting refreshed? The general contractor, Horgan, just submitted pricing this morning. They finally got all their subs together to be able to put together a pricing proposal. I've been talking about this for 3 months, and it's taken them 3 months to get those subs together to be able to put together a logical proposal. We'll be reviewing that as a Pinnacle Living Cedarfield team tomorrow, and hope to make recommendations to what they've offered, and/or I haven't seen the timeline yet of when they propose to start these couple of projects. So, but that's all moving in the right direction. There is another there's actually two rumors. The other rumor squashing moment is that when EMTs come onto the property, we just let the EMTs on the property and they roam around and go to a security issue, and they're kind of left to their own devices of how to find the emergency. Is how I kind of received the first inquiry when I got back from vacation. This all centers around an event that happened a couple of weeks ago when security escorted our EMT folks to a particular apartment here in the main building. The EMTs and the firefighters were finished with the event, and then they left the building, but they didn't leave the property. Security goes back to the gatehouse. This particular resident called 911 again when the EMTs and the fire department were still on the property. And so they didn't have to go far to be dispatched. They were right outside the door of the main building. And so they couldn't come in because security was already back at the gatehouse. So the rumor around the community is we just let EMTs on the property to kind of go find where the incident is. In this particular incident, it really had to do to timing. And we'll try to work out a way where maybe security stays with the emergency all the way through. But security did what we told them to do and what they're trained to do in this particular incident. And so I guess the rumor around the campus is we just let EMT and firefighters onto the campus and let them go find the emergency themselves. And that could be farthest from the truth. Again, live chats, these weekly live chats. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 residents here. Any resident is welcomed. If you live in healthcare, if you live in assisted living, or you live in independent living, please feel free to come to these weekly chats. They're open to anybody. And these weekly live chats are intended to take the place of a town hall meeting once a month. We're going to continue to have these weekly chats. for the foreseeable future, so all are welcome to come. And I think that's it on my little potpourri tidbit list. Anybody have any questions come in? Jacqueline, do you have questions?
Yes, three things. The trailers now at Parkview are two, and neither one of them are behind the fenced area, so that parking space, 3 parking spots are being taken up by an empty fence holding area.
Okay. The question here has to talk about our dumpsters at the Parkview entrance, and the fence is taking up parking spaces. So we'll look at that.
Yeah.
Second question?
And, can we get the active shooter date when that is going to take place with more details accompanying it as well?
Yeah, we're trying to work with the chief of police, who's kind of hard to get a hold of and put on his schedule. So we want him to be here. And as soon as he gives us a date of when him and his team can be here, we're talking about the active shooter drill that we want to perform. We don't want to do it in a vacuum. We want to perform the drill with actually pressing a couple of the buttons we have around the community that go straight to the police to alert us. We want to practice the drill along with the police. And so as soon as he can give us a date, we'll schedule it up.
And lastly, the civil engineer's report on the leak in the tunnel, have we gotten that?
Yes, we've Jacqueline is asking about the civil engineers' report on the leak of the tunnel. The civil engineers have not only provided their report, but they have drafted in architecture form what they propose as the solutions. We reviewed those solutions 2 days ago, Jack and I, with the architect, and they were working with a general contractor to implement the plan. So, Mr. Rucker, you have a question?
I think I sent one earlier in writing. Basically had to do with the fact that in some recent conversations with some of the residents, the question has come up as to how the Pinnacle Board of Directors really relates to our governing process at Cedar Field. And I know that the Code of Virginia speaks to that, and I'd like some clarification as to how that's supposed to play out.
So those of you that, Mr. Rucker is asking a question here. I'll summarize the question about in the Code of Virginia, under the insurance chapter within the code, which is chapter 38, that's really the section that's the governing body for continuing care retirement communities. And in that section, Mr. Rucker's referring to, there's a section in there, 49 something, where the board of directors or its designee, which happens to be me, is responsible for conducting, if I'm following your logic, Mr. Rucker, the designee is responsible for holding quarterly meetings with the residents. And are we in compliance with that? In my humble opinion, I think we are in compliance with quarterly meetings because I'm the responsible party that is referenced in that section by the board of directors as an executive director of a community. And by having these weekly meetings live here with residents able to walk into this fellowship hall and having directors every week come in and give updates about their departments or neighborhoods, I believe we are in compliance with that code, quite honestly. I think we're going above and beyond the code. The code calls for quarterly meetings, and here I believe we have weekly meetings. So on top of that, I haven't read that code recently, but I would also reference your resident council meetings every month that you have. The executive director and the associate executive director come to the resident council meetings, and which are monthly, to give report out on operations and then freely ask people if they have any questions about operations. So I think I'm fairly confident that we're in compliance with that code. So, anybody else have any questions? One more question came in via text.
2 text messages that came in right on the top there.
When will recycling be picked up? That's a great question. Recycling outside my curb at home is going on 11 days being not picked up. So I know Sharon Brown, who is responsible for, in the house, she's a housekeeping director, responsible for recycling. If anybody wants to get on the phone with her and talk with recycling, you're more than welcome to do so. I know she's working very diligently trying to find a date of when they will be here. They are in the same boat that Cedarfield is in, called a workforce pandemic, trying to find drivers to pick stuff up. The second question is, there is a rumor that there was a break-in on the, yeah, we identified that. Okay, any other questions? Hopefully this weekly chat has been helpful for everybody. If you have any questions about the content of this weekly chat, feel free to call down to administration or stop by. Our doors are always open and our phones are always ringing. So, next up is Annie, who's going to provide some spiritual words of well-being. Annie?
Good afternoon. Our spiritual words of well-being today will focus on grace. It seems right now that many aspects of our day can be overwhelming in some fashion. A sense of anxiety can easily bubble over. We worry about the unknown. We feel isolated, alone, lonely, frustrated, and even sometimes overwhelmed. When such times occur, do not become discouraged. God's grace surrounds us. Grace covers us and transforms us. Grace is a divine intervention on our behalf that circumvent the laws of nature, time, space, cause. Life requires courageous steps, big and small. Considering that most of us operate under the assumption that daily life is a battle, it's no wonder we're amazed when out of the blue there is a force which seems to surround us. Grace is that force, the spiritual energy field that protects and assists us. Grace allows us to glide through the moments, the encounter, the day without resistance. Grace will not leave us. It will not allow us to walk into a wall, turn around and walk into that wall again. Grace leads us beyond the limits of humanity and allows us to walk in freedom, to be able to walk in love, joy, peace, hope, patience, and yes, long suffering. When we experience real life, grace enables us to endure. Anne Lamont writes, "I do not at all understand the mystery of grace, only that it meets us where we are, but it does not leave us where it found us." We access grace like every other spiritual tool by asking for it specifically and regularly. Let us pray. Lord, thank you for delighting us with your grace and surprising us with the moments that take our breath away, reminding us of your miracles. To you be the glory and honor. Amen.